Yo, what's going on? Travis here with TravisStutzel.com, TrainAggressive.com. About to crank out an awesome aggressive strength talk session here. I'm with my boy Egan Enoue, and I hope I didn't butcher his name, but my man Egan met you about a year and a half ago at a big trainer conference, and just finding out more about your past history, I was like, I got to get this guy on the line and dig into his brain a little bit about what he's been doing as far as training goes. And so I'm super pumped for this this call. So I thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you're like out on like vacation or at like a timeshare. It was kind of crazy setting up this call. Like we were trying a bunch of different stuff, but we got it on the line. We're good to go. So I thank you for being on the line, man, and taking the time.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Definitely, and like I said, I'm pretty pumped up to find out more about your history because all I know is you're a past MMA champion, and you were telling me that you're a champion in racquetball, and like those two sports are like one extreme to the other, so it's kind of crazy. Yeah. So I'm pumped up to dig into that and find out more about the way you train because I know you do a lot of MMA based training, and I'm really into that stuff. So I'm pretty pumped up, dude.
All right.
So why don't we just start it off and just kind of dig into more about you, just kind of introduce yourself, and just let us know how you got started, man.
Okay, so basically, like from past talking about racquetball, that was kind of like my first career, or like my first life. I won 2 Racket Ball World Championships. I played like 10 years on the professional circuit, traveling all over the world. And then I moved from there to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I got 2 World Championships there in Brazil. I went to Brazil and won those. Awesome. And then I just kind of switched over to MMA, which I won 5 World Championship titles in MMA fighting. So that's basically my quick history.
That is nuts, dude. So let's back up and go back to when you first started out with racquetball. So that was kind of your first sport, so to speak, then. So yeah. I guess how did you get into that? Where did you grow up at? Like
I grew up right here in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that kind of a big sport out there? A lot of people do it, or
no, not really. It's not that big in Hawaii. Racquetball is an outdoor place, so playing indoors was a kind of tough thing to do.
Definitely. And speaking of which, like I had an old client that used to train in my gym. He moved away, but he was a racquetball champion. Actually, he's a pro racquetball player. And when he called me years ago to he wanted to come in and train, and I trained him for a couple years. And he said he was a pro racquetball player, and I was like, "Are you serious? They actually have pro racquetball?"
That's
so
the thing.
I thought that was pretty crazy. But yeah, he travels around the country and does like pro racquetball tournaments and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. So you grew up in Hawaii. You started out playing racquetball. How did you get into, I guess, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from there?
So basically, as I was growing up playing racquetball, I was always looking for ways of like getting my racquetball game better, getting stronger mentally, physically. So I was jumping from martial arts to martial arts, and then that's kind of how I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to MMA is kind of a natural switch.
Yep. Definitely. So you mentioned you went out to Brazil, and you actually lived out there. I've been out to Brazil, a few times, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Where did you live when you were out in Brazil?
I was actually in Bali, and I actually only stayed there for a month the first time, and then I went back 2 different times to compete in the World Championships.
Kind of sounds like the same thing I did. I was over there for about 3 weeks, and then I came back, and then I went back a couple times, and so it was a culture shock over there. It's kind of crazy. So
yeah,
versus what we have over here in the U.S. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Where'd you go in Brazil?
All over the place. I was in a town kind of in the middle of Brazil, kind of like Nebraska is, which is Cuiabá, and then spent a lot of time out in São Paulo, and then I was lucky enough to go out to Rio for a while too. So it was good times. That place is just huge.
Yeah.
And what was really cool about Brazil, and what I really liked about it was everybody over there is so fitness oriented. There's people everywhere outside. Obviously, it's a highly populated place, but what I noticed in like even like the big cities like São Paulo, it seemed like there's workout stations like everywhere. Like the weirdest one I saw was it's like on the highway, and their roads are a lot different than ours out here. I mean, they're not as advanced, but it's like right off the interstate is like a workout station. There's like dudes doing like pull-ups and sit-ups and push-ups. I just thought it was the weirdest thing ever, and it's just like in the middle of nowhere, and I just thought it was a little crazy, but that's the type of stuff that you'd run into there in Brazil. So, backing up, what kind of training did you used to do in regards to racquetball? Because obviously that's a sport, a lot of short bursts of all-out speed and power and agility. So, what was the kind of training that you were doing to stay up at such a high level?
So a lot of the training that I was doing for that is like a lot of plyometrics, a lot of things, anything that required explosive movements. I did a lot of sand workouts. I did lots in the sand for endurance, the strength, building muscle. Mostly all that, and a lot of like reaction drills. So a lot of like dropping the ball, trying to get there before it hits the ground, having people drop balls from side to side. There's those little balls where you throw in the court and try to chase it down. Yeah. So all of it was mostly leg strength stuff.
Yeah, leg strength stuff. Yeah, and just reaction drills and things like that.
Yeah. A lot of agility, movement, ladders.
Yeah, so having that kind of base in regards to like speed, quickness, agility, obviously that crossed over really well to BJJ. How did your training switch up, so to speak? Because you said you approached BJJ to kind of gain that mental edge in regards to training and just that extra physical strength. So I guess how did your training change up when you started training for BJJ?
So the BJJ stuff was more like more core strengthening stuff. So like a lot of like in the core, moving your core, because it's so much stronger than like just individual limbs. So the speed from the racquetball was perfect for the takedowns and getting in and getting someone to the ground, staying on top. Leg strength's always a great thing to have. So in jiu-jitsu, like the holds, the guard, mount position, once I get to certain positions like that, it was right up my alley. I just had to get that twisting, that weird where your hips go one way and your upper body kind of go the other way, but still keep that core tight. Like so that type of movement. I don't want to call it Pilates, but it's kind of got that same type of idea where you're trying to keep something tight, where moving it in a weird direction. Yeah. So that type of training.
Yeah, and BJJ, I mean, you just got to do the actual sport to kind of get yourself in those types of situations. It's like wrestling. You can't train for some situations that you're going to be in. You can't necessarily train, for those positions. You just got to just have that base of, core strength. So I think that's interesting, man. So getting into, I guess, how you train today, because you do a lot of MMA stuff. So you started out racquetball, moved on to BJJ, and then you got into the MMA, arena. So talk a little bit about that, and tell me more about, I guess, your whole experience with that.
So getting to MMA from there, you have to be able to box. So I was spending a lot of time Western boxing for my hands. So that again is foot speed, quickness, agility, and then hand speed. And then also I went over to Thailand and I trained in Muay Thai. So I started doing Muay Thai. So to sharpen up the elbows, the knees, and then the type of kicks that they do. So that again is foot speed. A little more torque in the body using your elbows and knees. So now you're starting to encompass even more core. Coordination had a lot to do with it too, because now you're using your upper body and your lower body at the same time, and almost because you have to and not because you just want to. It's like either you're going to get beat up by not being able to function one side or the other side, or upper or lower body, or being able to make yourself function so you don't get beat up too bad. And then, of course, the wrestling, takedowns. I train in like Greco-Roman, so I picked up a lot of Greco-Roman type of workouts, which is like all upper body throws, and then freestyle folk wrestling, which was a lot of legs, a lot of like lowering elevation, changing heights. So the MMA workout was really the most interesting for me because it encompassed all different kinds of things, and bringing it to the mainstream where you can actually train it without like getting hit back or without needing to fight. Yeah. It was such a fun thing for me because the workouts are just endless. I mean, the combinations of things that you can put together is completely endless, and that's kind of what I'm doing with these workouts.
Definitely, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, especially when it comes to MMA, is just the amount of actual training that actual MMA fighters are doing. It's not just one thing. I mean, it's skills across the board, like you mentioned, boxing. BJJ. Obviously, that was a kind of implanted in your brain already. But and then you're doing wrestling on top of that, and all kinds of different stuff. So I think it's interesting to hear how that works. But I guess so. All that stuff you're doing is more skill based. Obviously, you're getting a workout in when you're training those different skill sets and different techniques. What were you doing anything on top of that in regards to like actual just pure strength and conditioning training?
Yeah, so basically I did a lot of pool workouts to get even more resistance in the water. I did Olympic lifting, so like there's a lot of Olympic lifting involved in getting even stronger. So like power cleans was probably like my favorite thing to do because it's explosive, but it also required a lot of strength.
Yeah.
Mostly that kind of stuff. I did a lot of band stuff. We do a lot of things with bands and sandbags and again like plyometrics, ladders, and so those are the other things that we did to make the workouts even better. Pulling sleds, pushing the sled, right? And a lot of it like from not only on land, but we bring it onto the sand, and then that just adds a whole other element to the whole thing.
Yeah, and I've unfortunately living in Nebraska, I don't have access to much sand out here, but whenever I do, I always try to get a sprint workout done on the sand, and I mean just the difficulty of that, just going from running on flat ground to running on the sand, it's just huge difference. And for somebody that that doesn't do it regularly, like even just like one session, obviously it'll take a while for you to get used to it if you're doing it for a while, but I mean you can definitely tell like it works all the stabilizer muscles in your legs and your feet. Like your feet are sore as heck after like a sprint session on the sand. But yeah, for people that want to get faster, more explosive, quicker, like you mentioned, you're doing a lot of stuff in the sand. If you have access to sand, I mean, you got to be using it. Sprints on the beach are awesome, man. So that's good stuff. So let's kind of transition into what you're doing today. So you're done. You're done competing, correct?
Actually, I'm still doing like the seniors, like the senior world championships. Okay. So like 2 years ago, I went back. Won the world championships in the senior division. So just can't get it out of my system. Huh?
Just can't get it out. The competitive athlete, the competitive beast inside. I know how that is, man. So I guess what's your training looking like today? Is it still as intense as you used to do back then in the day, or have you tweaked some things up? Or I guess what are you doing now?
Yeah, so now I've shortened all my workouts. I've made it a lot more intense and done shorter. I'm 48 now, so it's like I don't recover as quick as and a lot of little things, the shoulders and elbows and knees, everything starts to ache. So the duration of my workouts have to be compressed a lot more. And I try to make it a lot like higher intensity. That way I got longer times of rest between the next workout. So the workout's just not as long. I'm training a lot smarter.
Yeah.
A lot of things that are you just do as you get older and you get smarter.
Definitely. Don't work harder, work smarter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That should be that's applied to all training, really. But I think one of the big points you make there, even if you're getting older and your body's starting to age a little bit more and your recovery just isn't where it used to be, I'm even starting to feel that too, and I'm 30. I'm not recovering like I used to in my early 20s, but I think that's a big point that you make is, and for people that will be watching this, take this in, is it doesn't, the amount of time that you put in, it doesn't have to be a long amount of time. It should be more focused and shorter duration. So it's all about the intensity that you put into the training session, the specificity, and, making those workouts shorter. And like you said, working out, harder, smarter, whereas some people, they fail with that and they think doing more is better, whereas better is better. I think that's the bottom line,
Exactly.
message with that. So,